All right, we'll get started. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Sabrina Hazelwood, and on behalf of Caresoft Technology Corporation, I would like to welcome you to our Second Front Systems and AWS webinar, Unlocking the Future of DoD Software Delivery, Game Warden and AWS in Focus. Before we get started, I would like to go over a few housekeeping items. The audio portion of this webcast can be heard through your computer speakers. Please note all of your lines have been muted to reduce any background noise. If you would like to ask a question throughout the presentation, please feel free to do so using the Q&A pod on the toolbar on the bottom of your screen. We'll set aside time at the end of the presentation to host a Q&A, and our speakers will answer your questions. If we're unable to get to your question, our Second Front Systems team will follow up with you offline. This webinar is being recorded, and a link will be sent out in a follow-up email for you to view it again or share with your colleagues. To tell you a little bit about Caresoft, we are a trusted government IT solutions provider delivering software and support solutions to federal, state, local, and education customers. As the master government aggregator for our vendor partners, Caresoft maintains dedicated proactive sales and marketing teams for all its vendors. I'd now like to introduce our speakers for today's presentation. First, we have Kevin Donahue, AWS Security and Compliance Partner Strategist for Amazon Web Services, and Dylan Sims, Director of Solutions Engineering for Second Front Systems. And with that, I'd like to now turn it over to our first presenter of the day, Kevin Donahue.
Thank you, Sabrina. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kevin Donahue. I'm with AWS, and I've been here for about 5 years. The majority of that time I spent with our FedRAMP security assurance program, maintaining our own FedRAMP authorization. So I know the compliance landscape and all of the challenges that come with it very well. Since then, for a little over a year now, I've been with the Global Security Compliance Acceleration Program. And GSCA is a partner program within AWS that helps customers overcome compliance challenges on AWS through direct support or with the help of our partners like Second Front. You can check out some of the GSCA offerings like our compliance bundles and get in touch with us by visiting our website, which I'll share later. We're super excited about Second Front's Game Warden platform with its ability to give customers an alternative path of delivering software to the federal government agencies and DoD, where security and compliance has traditionally been a blocker. By onboarding to Second Front, our customers can not only accelerate authorizations of their products, but also offload some of the investment that would otherwise be required in fixed headcount to maintain authorizations and address continuous monitoring requirements. So without further ado, let's hear more about Game Warden with Dylan Sims.
Thanks, Kevin. All right, I'm going to kick things off just by thanking all the attendees for joining us today for the webinar. And our partners at AWS and Caresoft for helping facilitate and host the event. So quick intro, Dylan Sims, Director of Solution Engineering for Second Front Systems. Second Front Systems is a public benefit corporation and recent Series C startup focused on accelerating the delivery of mission critical software as a service solutions to the government. My personal background, I spent the last 6 years prior to joining Second Front active duty in the Air Force. Out of college, worked at a small IT contracting company called Trinity IT, where I was building modernized web applications for the Air Force for air order of battle. My first assignment as a cyber officer was to 22nd Air Refueling Wing at McConnell Air Force Base, where I led key initiatives on securing our newest airframe, the KC-46, from a cyber mission assurance perspective. Then went to Kessel Run up in Boston, which is under Air Force Lifecycle Management Center, Detachment 12, where I founded the cloud team and worked for a few months also as a SecOps manager. That brings us up to where I joined Second Front about 3.5 years ago. At the time, we were a small seed stage company and have grown exponentially since then. So by way of agenda, today we'll be going through the public sector software delivery landscape. I'll introduce you to Second Front's Game Warden platform, which is our flagship product. Dive into the details, see Game Warden in action and a few case studies. Then we'll leave it open for Q&A. and conclusion and key takeaways. So before I dive into the challenges affecting the DoD software landscape, I'll go through just a high-level explanation of the data categorizations at play. So we have three primary classifications that are being used: unclassified, secret, and top secret. And then by way of impact levels, there's impact level 2, which is for non-sensitive information that's being used by the DoD. Impact level 4 for controlled unclassified information, which used to be called for official use only, or FOUO. Impact level 5 is also for controlled unclassified information plus national security systems and mission data. And impact level 6, which applies to secret information. So throughout the presentation, you'll hear me referring to these impact levels. Each one is just tied to a different classification of data. So in order for any system to process information at one of those impact levels, a cybersecurity assessment must be completed by DISA or a sponsoring agency, which typically follows the risk management framework or RMF process. The end result of going through that process is receiving an authorization to operate, or ATO, which validates that the system has met all the requirements to process the appropriate level of information. So if we take a look here at some of the challenges, and vendors that have gone through this are very familiar with exactly how time and resource consuming going through that RMF process can be. It's very manual. You're filling out spreadsheets. You're creating system architectures. Most of the documentation has to be handwritten by an engineer or someone very familiar with the product and how the system operates. There's also a limited number of authorizing officials in the DoD. Somewhere around 70 total CIOs and AOs across all the service branches. Some have delegated authorization down to lower levels, however. And few agencies are actually willing to sponsor authorization for an ISV in their public sector business, and its entirety is usually not part of it. Most often, authorizations will be scoped to a single use case for one agency or customer. And there's also limited process understanding by the commercial vendors. There's no convenient website that explains this process in depth. It's not, the TurboTax experience does not exist for software accreditation yet, though we're trying to get there. And then challenges managing day two operations. So typically the hosting model will be an on-prem delivery option, which essentially bypasses this RMF process for a lot of agencies. So the quickest path for them to most often use the product is just to host it themselves, which makes it really difficult for the vendor to provide updates, get customer feedback, collect key metrics, and manage those day two ops. So now let's take a look at FedRAMP. Generally speaking, FedRAMP is the compliance program that cloud service providers and software vendors must follow to support federal civilian agencies with data sensitivity requirements. FedRAMP is also where most software vendors will start their DoD compliance journey. Once a FedRAMP moderate or high authorization is completed, that package can be sent to DISA for review. There's a few extra controls that will be applied based off the DoD Cloud Computing Security Requirements Guide. And then a DISA provisional authorization can be granted at impact levels 2, 4, or 5. So the challenges highlighted in the recent FedRAMP roadmap that was released with this process, that it takes too long, costs too much to achieve an authorization. The marketplace has not kept pace with agency demand for new and innovative services, and the processes are too manual. So we look at some of the metrics here. There's 9,100 SaaS companies in the US. There are 349 total FedRAMP authorized services. So a pretty small cross section. And if you look at even just the FedRAMP high authorizations, which is for that controlled and classified information, there's only 39 that have been authorized since its inception in 2011. So this program has existed for 13 years, and we're at that 349 number. And if you, I did a search of FedRAMP of proposals that asked for FedRAMP, and there were a total of 1,600 in fiscal year 2024. So agencies are asking for FedRAMP, they're adopting it, but vendors find it a very challenging process to go through. And let's talk more about why it's so difficult. So up here in the blue section, you'll see that traditional ATO pathway kind of describes what it means to go through FedRAMP and add on that DISA ATO at the end. So the first challenge that you're going to run into is finding a sponsor. An agency needs to sign off on actually doing the assessment and sponsoring your authorization. So you find a sponsor, they're bought in. What's the cost going to be for this? So there's 3 PAO assessments that need to be involved. So a third party that's actually going to review your package, tell you what controls need to be changed, or what policies need to be updated so that you can maintain compliance with a FedRAMP low, moderate, or high. There's additional tooling usually involved with this. So think like managed SOC or endpoint protection, antivirus, maybe some DevSecOps tooling, and then staffing requirements. So your team will need to now support a government compliant version of their product. Usually this also means hiring a few security engineers, maybe additional consultants or in-house engineers that are familiar with FedRAMP. So the total cost, you're looking at 2 to 4 million in initial cost to actually get that FedRAMP moderate or high with that DISA PA. And the timeline is 6 to 24 months. And then there's also recurring costs. Since you had to hire for these roles, they need to maintain these environments, keep it up to date with a commercial offering if there is one, and then handle day 2 ops. If we now look at Game Warden, which is the green section, we built this product really as I describe it as a bureaucracy hack that takes the shape of a DevSecOps platform as a service. So this picture that you're seeing here is our process of actually hardening the applications that we end up running on the platform. So we took that 6 to 24 month process down to 90 days with this pipeline that you're seeing depicted, where we run containerized applications that can be cloud hosted through our security and release pipeline. And then there's optionality on the back end for managed production environments that meet different DoD compliance levels. So today we support impact levels 2, 4, 5, and 6, and all classifications. So unclassified, secret, and top secret for DoD and IC use cases. And let's dive into how it works. So for the application testing and hardening, which was shown a bit in the pipeline, we have multiple container scanning tools. They're checking for critical, high, medium, low vulnerabilities affecting packages, mostly in the container images and the application code. So we've got some hardening scripts that also reduce the attack surface by removing unnecessary dependencies and packages. And then when you get those CVE results back, we also have a customized application built out to actually work through justifications in a way that's much more user-friendly and collaborative than passing spreadsheets back and forth. For CI/CD pipelines, Game Warden is really simple to integrate with. It's just a Docker push to our container registry, and that enables us to then run your application through our entire security and release pipeline. So it can be fully automated for deployments to the development environment. And then we have a process. You must meet certain criteria to promote that release to dev staging or to staging or production. And that criteria changes based on the compliance level. So if you're looking at like an impact level 4 versus an IL5, there's going to be stricter remediation justification timelines for criticals and highs. It gets as fast as a justification must be provided within 5 days. An example could be maybe there's a log4j type vulnerability that just got released, but there's no patch yet. So you justify it by saying no patch available, we'll update when it's available. And then on the tail end, our customers also get managed and secure cloud hosting. So we run on top of AWS GovCloud, also working on edge deployment options and commercial environments in the near future. And built into our licensing is 24/7 cybersecurity and site reliability monitoring and response. So if a cluster goes down, if a database runs out of storage, if there's a security incident or attempted hack, we're responding to those things automatically. So before I dive into the architecture here, I want to go through a few reasons why we chose to partner with AWS. AWS Activate program helped us get off the ground with some credits and consumption credits. Really great program for early stage startups, and ended up being a huge part of our adoption strategy. The widespread adoption of AWS in both commercial and public sector markets is also notable, with a lot of ISVs already building apps on AWS. AWS also has an expansive list of DISA authorized services that are available in GovCloud. So if you haven't seen it, you can Google DoD services and scope AWS, and you'll find which services are available at each classification and impact level that's supported. And their maturity of GovCloud and AWS secret and top secret regions on their C2E contract and previously AWS C2S. So diving into the architecture here, Game Warden, like I said, is really that pipeline that once a customer has built or an ISV has built their application, actually compiled that container image, then it's pushed to a registry, pipeline deploys it into a fully managed Kubernetes cluster. So we're running that on top of EKS, and we're setting up all the networking and the underlying services that are being used. So I have just a few examples here, like S3 RDS are the most common, but we support others, SQS, DynamoDB, Elasticache, and more that are not listed. And it differs based on target environment. So if you were targeting like a top secret classification, S3 and RDS are available, but the others may not be. All right, so put it to practice. What does Game Warden actually deliver for its customers? Here are 4 different applications that we're hosting on the platform. We've got Decision Lens, which is a planning tool to help with unfunded requests and basically give enterprise oversight into that process. Running on Game Warden at multiple impact levels. We've got Plan View, Value Stream Management Solution that we're hosting at IL4, Learn to Win, a recently deployed accelerated learning platform on IL6, which is classified secret, and Collaboration AI, which is AI-driven collab tools. If you heard of the AFWorks challenge, it runs on Collab AI, which we deployed to impact level 5. And now we'll open it up for some Q&A.
Thank you, Kevin and Dylan. We really appreciate you speaking with us today. Now we can start the Q&A. If you have any questions, please use the Q&A pod at the bottom of your screen. So we do have one question. So what compliance frameworks does Game Warden follow?
The primary one is NIST 853. However, we also follow the DoD Cloud Computing Security Requirements Guide, CIS benchmarks, and DoD DevSecOps reference architecture.
Thanks, Dylan. And then what are some common issues you run into with the apps?
So a big thing is external integrations. When engineers are designing apps for commercial use cases, some things not taken into account are whether that or not that service is going to be available on the network that we're deploying to support a federal customer. So things like sending logs to Datadog, for example, couldn't be supported in an impact level 5 or higher environment because that external system is not authorized at the same impact level.
Okay. And what examples do you have of deploying SW into a TS fabric?
I could go through some specific examples on a call. I can't share right now on the webinar because of the sensitivity of the projects we're doing there. But yeah, just set up a call and we can go through it.
Great. Does Game Warden have ATOs through multiple AOs/services?
Right now, we're operating under an agency ATO from the Air Force and are in process for our DISA provisional authorization.
What kind of applications can Game Warden host?
We can host containerized applications that can run on Kubernetes in cloud-hosted environments, and in some situations may need to run in air-gapped networks without internet connectivity.
All right. And then one more question. Is this focused on ISVs only for FedRAMP, or can this be used for a system to get accredited? What are the details on what is a good fit?
So as long as the system can be cloud hosted, it can be used for a system to get accredited. Really, our limitation is with edge deployments because Game Warden is a fully managed platform, and a lot of the compliance controls for NIST would fall off for something that is deployed on a customer site or edge. So key thing is that if it's containerized, can run on Kubernetes and cloud-hosted networks like AWS GovCloud, then typically we can support it.
All right, and it looks like there's no more questions at this time, Dylan.
Excellent. All right, so just to wrap things up with some key takeaways, Game Warden can help you accelerate speed to value and grow top-line revenue by achieving impact level 4 or higher in 90 days and less with an ATO that enables you to scale across the DoD and IC without having to go through the accreditation process every time you land a new customer. Also enables for accurate budget planning. With us, it's a fixed cost, and the cloud compute is just one-to-one pass-through. So as you're scaling your business, the cost for the platform is not scaling as well. And then day 2 operations, we run them alongside your team. We're connected to DoD cloud access points. So when you're hosting with us, you are actually hosting on the networks where your customers will be using the application. And thanks everyone for attending, and I'll pass it back to Sabrina.
Thank you, Dylan. All right. Thank you, Kevin and Dylan, for being with us today. And I want to thank all of our participants who joined us today as well. We hope this webinar has been helpful for you and your organization. And if you have any further questions or would like to request more information, please feel free to contact us. Thank you, everyone.